Hello and good morning, or morning for me. Welcome to another hour at the Golden Hour, where my children are sitting just off camera and trying to stay quiet, but hopefully not making me laugh. So, this is an hour where we get to do. Oh, I don't know if you heard that. That was their teacher, their virtual teacher in the background going, "Come on, friends." Okay, some of them are leaving. Okay, one is eating popcorn and staring at me. Anyway, this is an hour for you and I to do whatever we each want, but get to do it together and have some companionship. So, I am continuing to read the book Sapiens. Goodbye, last child. I see. Goodbye, ta ta. I'm continuing to read the book Sapiens and talking about what I read at the beginning of each stream. We've been talking about how the agricultural revolution kept more people alive but under worse conditions, and that the concept that luxuries for one generation become necessities and then tend to spawn new obligations. So then he goes on to posit sort of another possibility about why did we continue to cultivate wheat. The basic layout of sort of what I wrote down from my understanding is, as always, there's this random chance that occurs in evolution. And if it has a survival benefit, it can often stick around. So, wheat happened to become plentiful near where there were humans, and there were also other resources. And so then humans kind of stick around in that place because there's a good amount of food, and they go ahead and harvest that wheat. But if one year, it takes 4 weeks to harvest it, the next year 5, the next year 6, suddenly kind of like villages come about, and then people really start like storing the extra grain for next year, and then we sort of go from this evolutionary benefit to intentionally cultivating it, and then that has unintended consequences, and then the trap snaps shut. We can't go back to our former way of life. Now we have to stay on the hamster wheel to keep the extra number of people that we've created with wheat alive. Anyway, so he was saying, so one thought is cultivation could be based on the idea that it made life a little easier to go, oh great, we could store food for leaner times. And then he makes the point, maybe it wasn't the search for an easier life that brought about the transformation. Maybe sapiens had other aspirations and were consciously willing to make their lives harder in order to achieve them. And then goes on to talk about archaeological evidence of temples being built in foraging societies. So he says it may well be that foragers switched from gathering wild wheat to intense wheat cultivation, not to increase their normal food supply, but rather to support the building and running of a temple. So just sort of another thought of how we went from, that sort of evolutionary boon of some wheat and it being kind of a good idea to stick around where there was wheat to intentionally cultivating it. And then he says, the Faustian bargain between humans and grains was not the only deal our species made. Another deal was struck concerning the fate of animals such as sheep, goats, pigs, and chickens. So, talks about how, first we domesticate wheat and then we domesticate animals. And he's saying, if you want to look at, what he says, the narrow evolutionary perspective, which measures success by the number of DNA copies, the agricultural revolution was a wonderful boon for chickens, cattle, pigs, and sheep. So, yeah, in terms of actual reproduction, we started trying to ensure that we had more copies of cattle and sheep, and, So it says, unfortunately, the evolutionary perspective is an incomplete measure of success. It judges everything by the criteria of survival and reproduction, with no regard for individual suffering and happiness. So then, of course, he goes on to talk about how industrial farming is a cruel, industry. Um, And so he says this discrepancy between evolutionary success and individual suffering is perhaps the most important lesson we can draw from the agricultural revolution. When we study the narrative of plants such as wheat and maize, maybe the purely evolutionary perspective makes sense. Yet in the case of animals such as cattle, sheep, and sapiens, each with a complex world of sensations and emotions, we have to consider how evolutionary success translates into individual experience. In the following chapters, we will see time and again how a dramatic increase in the collective power and ostensible success of our species went hand in hand with much individual suffering. So I suspect he's going to build upon that theme and continue to talk about how we're we're making that trade of a certain level of benefit, but at a really high cost. So are we really making a good trade? Yeah, is what I imagine he's going to continue to talk about. So that's what I have for today, and I will continue reading. I do need to leave early again today. These past couple weeks have just been unusual for my family, so I will just continue to stream as much as I can when I can. So I will reset the timer accordingly, and yeah, wish you luck. You know what I'm going to look up also is has referenced the Faustian bargain. I do not recall enough what that means. I don't like not getting references, or I suppose a more positive way to frame that would be I would prefer to educate myself on what a Faustian bargain is. Yeah, Faustian bargain, a pact whereby a person trades something of supreme moral or spiritual importance, such as personal values or the soul, for some worldly or material benefit, such as knowledge, power, or riches. A Faustian bargain is made with a power that the bargainer recognizes as evil or amoral. Um, yeah, so what if someone's making a deal with the devil here? But I'm trying to. The Legend of Faust, a character in German folklore and literature, yeah, who agrees to surrender his soul to an evil spirit. In some treatments, Mephistopheles or Mephisto, a representative of Satan, after a certain period of time in exchange for otherwise unattainable knowledge and magical powers that give him access to all the world's pleasures. Yeah, Faustian bargains are by their nature tragic or self-defeating for the person who makes them, because what is surrendered is ultimately far more valuable than what is obtained, whether or not the bargainer appreciates that fact. So, yeah, like, it rang a bell, and I got the essence of it from context, but yeah, I really prefer to go and look things up like that and just refresh or maybe really learn for the first time, like, oh, okay, that's based on a piece of German literature. Great. Okay. Anyway, so there you are. There's your refresher on Faustian bargains. Oh, and how we humans make them. Okay, I see our timer's up. Again, it's up a little early because I need to head out. I did not get much read today between other things. I got a whole 4 pages read. So, but it does sort of amuse me to have this whole process documented. What it's what it's like to try to read things or do something for yourself or expand your mind in the midst of your regular life. So, anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye bye.